So, welcome to my Season 2 video. I really enjoyed doing my Season 1 video, and, well, it didn't get that many views. I wasn't really expecting it to. This is a small channel. Since then, I've made renovations to the channel. I've sorted all my old political videos. I unlisted them, and I put them all in a playlist, appropriately titled Old Political Videos. If you think they're deleted, then you're wrong. You can just go in there. I just wanted to state this on the off chance that there might be 1 or 2 subscribers who subscribed during that short era of the channel and just got a notification that this guy they subscribed to ages ago uploaded a new video, and it's a video I'm not interested in because I don't want reviews. But that's probably not the case. Most of the subscribers probably subscribed during the time where I made videos making fun of total shows and making terrible Simpsons reviews, or way back making Teddy videos. Well, most of those videos have been deleted, aside from 2 which are still up publicly for personal reasons. You might be able to guess, but I'm not going to tell you, at least publicly, why they're still public. But anyway, let's actually get to talking. Despite the title of this video will make you think, I don't think Season 2 is a bad season. I think Season 2 is actually pretty good. It's definitely part of the golden age of the show. It just, is a convoluted mess. That is a truthful title, but it is kind of clickbait, expecting people to click on it, thinking it's a negative video, because negative videos get more views. But, again, it's fine. So, it's a very different season to Season 1, which I'll get to in a sec. We're going to structure this exactly the same as it is in the Season 1 review. This is more controversial, which I'll explain why. Why? Season 2 is debatably split into 3 parts. Although I consider the first 16 episodes a continuous story, primarily because it has the same main villain. Even though they're clearly different settings and separate arcs, but and we're all carrying over things, and so 9, 7, 6. I'm not covering. So I think it's best to do the first 16 episodes together, and I'm not doing the last 6 on their own. Like skipping them, so I'm gonna do this. I'm stating this because things are going to change a little bit in the Season 3 video, which I'll talk about later in this 6-part series. Don't know why I said 7 in the last video. I really don't. But never mind. I hope that you enjoy this video. Okay, so the season begins with, the curse is broken. And Snow and Charming have waken up and go and find their daughter. She immediately finds them. Before they have time to a happy reunion, they immediately have to get going, as a mob is raiding Regina's house. They, of course, stop the mob, but lock Regina up as a precaution. They then go and confront Gold, who they believe is responsible for the purple smoke, which is then revealed to be magic coming to Storybrooke. Gold did this because of very specific reasons which he is not sharing right now. But because of what Regina did to Belle, Gold has gone increasingly angry with her and decides to send a Wraith to kill her. Now, a Wraith just seems to be like a killing machine. You know, like something being a spirit whose only intention is trying to kill someone. It's a classic concept. You know how it goes. So, obviously, the good guys want to save the bad guy from the Wraith because they're good guys. Especially when Henry wishes that she will stay alive, even though David is initially hesitant. This is the first ever episode of the series without any flashbacks. However, we do not actually know this until the very end of the episode. The main plot of the episode is about fighting a Wraith, and there are flashbacks about 3 characters we don't know fighting a Wraith. So, while they're not giving backstory on any of these specific characters, I'm pretty sure the intent is that this is backstory on how 3 characters defeated a Wraith. However, we then find out that no, the events we have been seeing throughout the episode are not flashbacks. They're actually set in the present day. Actually, you can argue that they're slightly set in the future, because that is implied to be the same Wraith as we saw throughout the episode. So, actually, the events we see are technically flash forwards. They technically take place straight after the episode we saw ended. So they solve the problem by sending the Wraith to another realm, to a blank void, by using Jefferson's hat, which apparently Regina doesn't know where it came from. This doesn't really have any story significance, but just wanted to mention it. So they send the Wraith there, which Regina claims to just be an empty void now. Anyone can guess that Regina is lying at this point, that the Enchanted Forest still very much exists. But they do not know this. But as they are sending the Wraith back in time, Emma and Snow both fall into the hat and are sucked in there. Meaning that, according to Regina, they all fell into that empty void. So again, Regina is lying, and Emma and Snow are safe. They are sent to the Enchanted Forest and meet up with Milana and Aurora, who we've been following throughout this episode. So the next 8 episodes are kind of weird. They switch between the Enchanted Forest, and they switch between Emma and Snow in the Enchanted Forest with Milana and Aurora, and the villains they're fighting, and everyone else, all of the main characters, in Storybrooke. The way they do this is kind of weird. They seem to focus more on the Storybrooke side, but the Enchanted Forest side is really the big plot heavy where all the interesting stuff happens. Let me just explain. Episode 2 is set entirely in Storybrooke aside from the very end, which is episode 3 is set primarily in the Enchanted Forest, but with a Storybrooke subplot. Episode 4 is set entirely in Storybrooke, except from the very end. Episode 5 is set primarily in Storybrooke, with a subplot set in the Enchanted Forest. Episode 6 is the only episode to focus entirely in the Enchanted Forest, with a Storybrooke segment at the very end. But it goes back to it with episode 7 just reverting to Storybrooke, Enchanted Forest segment at the end. Episodes 8 and 9 are kind of set in both equally. Episode 8 being the first episode explicitly without flashbacks. Now, those two are the only episodes to take place which take place basically 50-50. The thing is, the Storybrooke side, it isn't that plot heavy. It mostly focuses on like character stuff and setting up stuff later in the season, while the Enchanted Forest is where what it feels like the main plot is happening in. For example, a lot of the Storybrooke segments are focusing on David getting Jefferson's hat to work. That goes absolutely nowhere, as Jefferson's hat is destroyed in episode 7. Actually, it feels like the main character for the first 9 episodes of the show is David. That's not really a bad thing. It's just kind of a weird thing. But I'll get to that more when I talk about the characters. I just want you to understand why I might be focusing on the Enchanted Forest for quite a bit of this video. So when Emma and Snow get trapped through a portal, we see the dwarves wanting to see what's outside Storybrooke, seeing if they can leave now. But it turns out, if anyone leaves Storybrooke, they revert back to their cursed selves. This angers Rumpel, as the entire reason he made the curse was to break it and find his son. But now, it's gonna be pretty difficult to do that. Meanwhile, Regina is having trouble with magic until she finds a spellbook and steals Henry from her grasp. When she finds out Henry is happier with David, she lets David take him. And meanwhile, in the Enchanted Forest, Emma and Snow are thought to be responsible for Prince Philip's death and get into a prison cell with someone who we see is Cora, Regina's mother, who we had only seen in 2 flashback episodes up to this point. We didn't even know that she was still alive until this moment. But considering how much they were promoting her, it seemed obvious that they were going to do something with her. And Cora plays as the main villain for the majority of this season. Episodes 1 to 16, to be specific. When Emma and the gang... But when they are confronted by their leader, Snow sees that is her old friend Lancelot, and they are completely removed of all charges. Okay, I'm not sure if you actually get charges here, but you do. Lancelot allows them to travel to the wardrobe, which Snow thinks is still there, if they take their best warrior with them. This is said to be a bit weird, but they go along with it. Now, But when they get to the wardrobe, it turns out that Lancelot wasn't Lancelot. It was just Cora in disguise, which is kind of questionable because wouldn't Cora be in two places at once? Because the leader declares a meeting. Cora was in prison at that point as well. So did she just declare the meeting with the two and then just... It doesn't really make that much sense, but I'm going with it anyway because it's a very crucial plot point, to be fair. I don't know why, but there's some issues there. And so they get out the court. So, but it turns out that there is ways. They have to get a magic bean and they need a compass to do it. This is told when they get back to camp. Everyone is killed by Cora, except from apparently one guy who is obviously revealed to be working for Cora. He is Captain Hook, who wants to get to Storybrooke to get revenge on Rumpelstiltskin for killing his wife, which is completely understandable. Captain Hook is he's been on this quest for hundreds of years, as he spent most of the time in Neverland. This is a great introduction to such a big character, which we'll obviously get to in the characters portion. So Emma and Hook have to climb a beanstalk after Hook agrees to work with them now to get the bean, to get the compass. But Emma finds that the giant is nice, but when they go up the beanstalk, Emma leaves Hook behind? This is something that has never really made sense to me. Because Emma said she needs a head start, but what? But Hook won't slow her down that much, and it's stupid because it leaves someone behind. So I don't think it makes that much sense, really. It's just a really weird moment, and not just that. Not only that, the most pressing issue is he's clearly going back to work with Cora, which he does, and Emma obviously doesn't want that. So it doesn't really make any sense of why she should leave him behind. It's never made sense to me, because it's better having him on your side, and the fact that he isn't in this scene, that he won't be after this, that you're betraying him, isn't good for business, and Emma knows this. It feels really stupid on Emma's part. So, as I was saying before, the hat David was trying to use was come back to get missing, and Emma's number one Aurora don't think that they can defeat Cora in time. They think that they can't beat her, but they realize soon Henry and Aurora are having a mutual nightmare because they have both recently woken up from a sleeping curse. They use this to communicate with the other world, asking Aurora to ask Henry of how to ask Rumpel of how to defeat Cora, because he might be the only one that knows. So they do. But when Aurora gets captured and they can't think of a way for for Henry to get back in there after he's way too injured. Regina and David both agreed it's too dangerous to send him in. So Charming puts himself in a sleeping curse and guesses Snow will be on the other side, which she is, but she can't wake him up. As the Netherworld, they are non-corporeal. They aren't really there. So Snow cannot wake him up. Because of a lack of communication, Rumpel and Regina both decide to destroy where the portal is coming out of, so there is no chance of Cora coming through. And at this point, when Hook gets Aurora's heart, it does and makes Aurora betray them. It seems done. They seem done. But obviously, we know they're going to win and they're going to get through. Regina changes her mind and saves their life, basically, after everything happens. So Emma and Snow are back home and they have a reunion. Snow wakes David up and Regina gets a moment of being good. So that concludes the first arc of Once Upon a Time of Season 2. And the best arc of Once Upon a Time Season 2. Don't get me wrong, the rest of the season isn't bad by any means. The next 7 episodes are, for the most part, still pretty good. It just gets into some of the bigger problems of the season, where the convoluted mess part really comes into play, because for now I've mostly been talking about one thing. There has been subplots set up, but it's mainly been focusing on one thing. There hasn't been so many plots going up, and this is something that obviously doesn't continue, as the next 7 to 6 don't always follow this pattern. So while it looks like Emma and Snow weren't followed, Cora and Hook managed to get to Storybrooke anyway, and Cora tells Hook to lay off the revenge because, well, they noticed magic is in Storybrooke, so they no longer have the advantage they thought they might have. Yeah? So Cora puts a plan in place for no one to trust Regina after everyone's just started to trust her, as Regina has an argument with Archie. So Cora responds by what it seems like disguising as Regina to kill Archie. And it seems like a clear-cut case, but that Regina killed him, and they believe it, and Emma is the only one who doesn't believe it. But then she uses magic herself to see it, to wind back to that day, and it seems Regina did kill Archie. We then so now Regina is an outcast again, even though she did not do it. We then find out at the end of the episode that Cora did not in fact kill Archie. She just killed a random resident and made him look like Archie. R.I.P. that random resident Cora killed and disguised as Archie. So, while Cora is trying to win back her daughter's trust, Rumpel has found a way to travel through the border without losing his memories. So he asks Emma to do so. To help him do so. Find his son. As well as an outsider also comes to Storybrooke. Oh! And Snow and Charming are having marital issues for some reason. I don't know. You see, this is what I'm talking about. There's a lot going on, and a lot of the time it doesn't feel a need to connect everything. It's just happening, I guess. So as I said, Rumpel and Emma go and look for Rumpel's son, which they find to be in New York. Emma takes Henry with them as she thought it was too dangerous to leave him in Storybrooke with Cora running about. They don't know where she is yet. So they both go. So they'll fly there. And we then find out Rumpel's son, who now goes by the name Neil Cassidy, is Henry's father. This twist is one you enjoy more on rewatch. It shocked me when I was younger, but when I first watched it, but there was hints to it. I mean, there was hints that he was part of a magical world. We didn't know who that guy at the beginning of episode 1 was, as was a random guy who got sent a letter. And I'll send you a postcard was revealed in episode 6. So he definitely believed the curse when we saw him in flashbacks, which kind of weird from what was shown in the episode, just be a regular guy. Who knows? We don't. Now, so yeah, I do like this. I like this twist, and it's the first example of the fucked up family tree in the show. As again, Rumpel's son is Henry's father. So Rumpel is now connected to the family tree. Well, he was largely an outsider. Now he's family to everyone, which lasts a lot in the show in the long run, surprisingly enough. And again, this isn't the family tree awfulness is one of the most infamous things about this show, and this is the first example of it. This is before it gets really mad, which we'll talk about in every video after this. But I think this is a great twist. Just this. After initially refusing, Neil agrees to go back to Storybrooke with Rumpel when it seems his life is in danger, as Hook has finally caught up with him and poisoned him. And the only way he can get the cure is to return to Storybrooke. Meanwhile, Snow has just found out that Cora was responsible for her mother's death, and Cora decided to put good in the bin and kill Cora and in the process saving Rumpel, as in a life for a life. She was dying, so she made someone else die. She did this by making Regina do it, by tricking her. She needs her heart. And this is predicted as a dark act for Snow to do. So yeah, Snow's Tyler's revenge, but I think it was the completely right decision to kill Cora. I do not think that there was any other option that wouldn't have caused more pain. I think it was necessary. Like at the end of the season, Snow says that there was more ways, harder ways than ending a life. Whatever ways, that would just end up with more lives taken. If Snow hadn't done that, Cora would have become the Dark One and killed all of them. There was no way to do that which wouldn't cause more hurt. So it annoys me how it's treated. But now we're mostly past the good stuff in general. After Korra dies, now our main villain is dead. What are we supposed to do the last 6 episodes of the season? Oh, why not just cram in an almost completely new plot? Use that for the last few episodes as like a climax, and a poorly thought out, underdeveloped plot. Just use that, you know? Let's just do that. So after the reaction, David tells Rumple he has to protect Snow. So they do. Regina goes mad and makes killing Snow her ultimate mission again. But it doesn't work. And this means no changes and they all decide to go back to the forest. But as soon as they get caught up, Emma gets suspicious of Neil's fiancée, Tamara, believing that she is someone she knows warned her about before he died. And it turns out she was right. She wasn't just a jealous ex, which she looked like a jerk, and it makes it look all okay. But anyway, these two are Greg and Tamara. They are the main villains of the last 6 episodes of the series. They both want to destroy magic from this world. Greg wants to do it because as a kid he was betrayed by Regina, as Regina killed his father. So he wants revenge on Regina, and by extension revenge on magic for killing his father. Tamara wants to destroy magic because so let's continue. So as they find out that Greg and Tamara are evil and go and save Regina, Neil gets shot, falls through a portal, and is assumed to have died. The whole gang are mourning. Whole gang though don't have time to mourn, as Greg and Tamara are releasing a failsafe which could destroy all of Storybrooke. They come up with a plan to get a magic bean to save everyone, but they can't leave Regina behind, who is trying to slow down their failsafe. But when Emma works together with Regina to slow it down, they get safe, and we all get Regina. But then they notice that Henry has gone missing, and it turns out Greg and Tamara kidnapped him, saying that they're not after destroying magic anymore. They're just after him. So that's our cliffhanger for this end of season. And what a season it was. The last 6 episodes weren't that good, but most of the season was still pretty good. Despite some of my complaining this time, Season 2 is still the 3rd best season of the show. It's very far from the worst, and I'd still give it a solid 7 out of 10. But now we've talked about the story, let's get into the characters. We've got a lot to talk about today. First, let's talk about the returning characters from Season 1. First, let's talk about our main protagonist, Emma. We didn't talk about her last time, but I think it's appropriate this time. She's not as good as she was in season 1. She's not as relatable. She's not as much of a straight, and she's just somewhat part of it, as she's the only one surprised by a lot of things. I like the dynamic with Snow and Enchanted Forest, but once we get back to story, Brooke, it just doesn't feel like she does much. It feels like a lot of the seasons about Rumpel and Regina, and as we said at the beginning, a lot of the beginning of season seems to focus on David. Emma doesn't really feel like the main character of season 2, which is in sharp contrast to to a lot of the later seasons where Emma feels like the only character. Well, Emma and Regina feel like the only characters in later seasons. But we'll get to them when we get to them. And again, in the last... Again, I don't like her relationship with Neil. She acts like a jerk. I don't like some moments, like where she leaves Hook behind. And the Tomorrow situation just makes her come off like a jerk, even if she's right. That superpower thing really annoys me. And she completely avoids, a lot of things at this point. I still like her, I guess. But she does have a few moments this season which definitely make her unnecessarily unlikable. Then we have Regina. This is, without a doubt, Regina's best season. I talked about in the season 1 video of how Regina feels like a pure evil villain and doesn't feel like there's much room for a redemption arc. Here, it's mainly about deconstructing the idea. Is Regina suitable for a redemption arc? It's the best it's handled because it doesn't come out of nowhere. She is only changing for Henry, and once everyone turns against her, they all turn back. She turns back to evil. She flip-flops so much this season that it could get annoying to someone. And particularly her trusting Cora so much is kind of forced, but I think it works well enough because she's just doing all this for Henry. Or at least she believes she's doing all this for Henry, no matter how evil it is, like at the end where she is about to kill everyone in the town just so she can be with Henry. That is cruel. Could say she's doing with selfish motivations, but I want to talk about that more in the later videos when we get to them. Because Regina's redemption arc does get complicated, and while I think it's great here, it does get complicated. So, yeah, I like her. Then we have Snow this season, who I do like, but the show doesn't seem to. She is not a great parent to Emma in the first half, but I think that makes sense. And she arguably acts controlling David, but again, I think that makes sense. And I think killing Cora was undoubtedly the correct decision, but it's not treated as such, as Snow is treated as a pure of heart character. Now the specifics are kind of strange. She does not need to be a pure of heart character. Also, her darkened heart is not... It doesn't really go anywhere. It's mainly just a plot point for this season and isn't even mentioned later. Like, a lot of these things aren't followed up upon. And it's a bit disappointing because I think Snow, having her heart darkened, had a lot of potential. So, but it was just used for like a mini arc. Snow had to do a mini redemption, which she didn't really do though, so... Yeah, I like her. Then we have Snow this season, who I do like, but the show doesn't seem to. She is not a great parent to Emma in the first half, but I think that makes sense. I don't know what to say, really. Then there's David. In the Season 1 video, I talked about how much I disliked him. But screw it. That wasn't David. That wasn't Prince Charming. That was David Nolan. Who feels like a completely different character now. And I couldn't be happier. He really takes charge of the town. I love his relationship with Henry. I'm okay with his relationship with Snow. He doesn't treat her as badly as he did Season 1. And I like how he just steps up to the table. I like his protectiveness. I like how he's willing about things. I like him. In this season, it's his best season as he doesn't always do much. He's not always the most frequent character, but here it feels like he's used the best and used the most. It looked like I said he felt like the main character of 9 episodes of criticism. It wasn't. It was just a strange thing, but I enjoyed him being the main character. Honestly, I did. And then there's Rumpel, who gets a lot of development this season. He certainly does with finding his son, Balefire, and the union with him. And his relationship with Belle also, which we'll talk about. He gets a lot of development, and we even get a semi-friendship with David, which isn't present in the later seasons, surprisingly. They interact a lot here, in which, in later seasons, it just seems like a rare oddity of these two characters. But here, it's perfectly natural, and they do a lot. They're like an odd pair, and I enjoy it. I enjoy how Gold gets involved with the group. It's pretty interesting how much he helps them out. But I like how it's consistent. It's always for his own gain. And, yeah. He is still the best character in this show. I still think Season 3 might be his best season, or really just Season 3A. But, still, I really like this guy here. Then we have Henry, who doesn't feel as crucial to this season. He's mostly just there to further Regina's arc and to be there for the big reveal. I like how his relationship with David develops, especially in Storybrooke, and like him with the Nightmares, but it doesn't really feel like he does much, to be honest. When he was a crucial character in Season 1, and he becomes a crucial character again in Season 3, he does have more of a weight here than he does in other seasons. Don't get me wrong, but I'm still a little disappointed by the lack of usage with him. Now let's look at the new main characters, or the characters who were reoccurring before, but were promoted to regular this season. First, let's start with Ruby. In my Season 1 video, I said she does more in Season 2. I might have been misremembering because she doesn't do much. She's like the Archie of this season. All she really does is be David's assistant and Belle's best friend. That's it, really. She doesn't do that much outside of all this. She gets her one episode to herself, but that's it. And she disappears after episode 17. I'm pretty sure they probably just couldn't hold on to the actor because she only appears a few times in Season 3. That doesn't return again until Season 5, where they clearly give her an ending, and she was just brought back for that. Yeah. Then we have Belle, who honestly it's one of her better seasons. Belle's main issue is she's always listed as the main character, but She doesn't always feel like one. Rumple, her entire character just revolves around her relationship with Rumple. It's a little different, as in the first half we get a lot about her friendship with Ruby, which I really like, but then in the second half, they have her lose her memory for no reason, and then for the last 4 episodes, they give her new memories for also no reason. The only point this really does is to make Rumple a little more angry, so he asks Emma for help, but he could have just done that anyway. There's not really much point about losing her memory, or they just obviously didn't know what to do with her. And this is going to be a common issue with Belle going forward. Then we have Hook, the completely new character this season, who is a borderline fan favourite, especially how he develops in later seasons. Here he is a pirate who helps Cora, and he's really funny, mostly because of who he's played by Colin O'Donoghue. He's a very good character this season, of how he works with Cora and Regina, and I was surprised how little he interacted with Emma. He doesn't really have a scene with her in between when they come back from the Enchanted Forest and the very end of the season. I'm sure I remember them interacting a little more, at least a little more. But from what we do get, he's pretty good. And Captain Swan wouldn't seem like a surprise. Although, Emma still shouldn't have left him behind. Okay, now let's talk about the secondary characters. Like the last video, we're only going to talk about the ones which made some kind of major appearance over the course of the series. We're not going to talk about characters just because we talked about them in the previous video to catch up with them. I won't really be catching on to characters like Grumpy in this video because he doesn't do much, doesn't get a focus episode, for example. So yeah, just gonna point that out before anyone asks, why didn't you talk about this character? Because they weren't important, really. Let's go. Let's start with our main villain, Cora, who, yeah, I've been talking about throughout this video, so I've said a lot. She is incredibly hateable. So I think I didn't mention that we find out she's the Queen of Hearts, which really doesn't mean much, but it's a good twist on the dynamic. As, yeah, she has a lot of hearts. She is terrifying and so unlikable. You really want her to die. And and maybe I'm so glad Snow killed her just because of how awful she is, but anyway. And this is a good thing. You really love to hate her. Barbara Hershey plays a fantastic performance as this woman who no one can stand. She is just fantastic. I mean, not much to say, really. Then we have Dr. Whale / Victor Frankenstein. Now, I didn't talk about this character in my Season 1 video because I didn't think there was a point to it, because he didn't do much. He was just the doctor. Yes, he slept with Mary Margaret, but he didn't really have a character up to himself. He was just the doctor. We didn't even know who he was. We find that out here. He is Dr. Frankenstein. Yes, they put Dr. Frankenstein in this show. Logic? I don't fully get it. But they set up he gets Not one, but 2 focus episodes. Well, really just one, as the Doctor is more a Regina focus episode. And they're both based on his insecurities. And we see flashbacks of this version of the story of Frankenstein, which is a very interesting version of the story. And yeah, he's able to talk his brother down, who he brought back to life, sort of successfully. And he tries to do the same to Regina's boyfriend, who, in return for sending him back to the other realm, which Regina unfortunately cannot do. So, yeah. Now we're going to talk about a character I really should talk about in the Season 1 analysis. King George. He is one of the main villains in flashbacks in Season 1, who is the main catalyst for David's backstory. So I really should have talked about him. Maybe it was just because he only appeared in present day, that point once, that I forgot to talk about him. But let's talk about him now. He's very hateable, and they set him up to be a big villain this season, but he doesn't appear after the only episode where he's a major villain. Again, like every character, they probably couldn't hold on to the actor. I think he's quite famous, although I'm not 100% sure. But like, they say he was defeated, but we never actually see how he was defeated. I assume that they just locked him up because we're pretty sure that this is his castle that Snow and Charming are in after they take over the kingdom, but we don't really know what has happened. Maybe he ran off. Who knows? But the next time he shows up, aside from flashbacks, is in Season 6. So, I don't even know what to say. Then we have... I want to briefly touch on Archie, because he does quite a lot in the first half of the season, but he kind of disappears after the second half. He is the main catalyst of the beginning of Regina's redemption arc, helping her out. And like I mentioned before, he is the main thing of the cricket game, which is a great title, and it's also a great part of an episode. But he got regular billing in Season 1 for no reason. They don't give him that here. And he is just supporting, but I want to briefly touch on him because he does like as much he does in Season 1. So if I talked about him in Season 1, I kind of have to talk about him here. The only difference is in Season 1 he had his own focus episode. But it feels like the cricket game was just as much about him. So maybe I should be talking about him. Then we have Anton the Giant, yet another character who does nothing after Season 2. The only thing he gets is one semi-mention in the Hyperion Heights spin-off. What? So he's not in the actual show again. He isn't. And most people say he stays with the dwarfs, but we never actually see him with the dwarfs. He's usually there to make magic beans, and he seems to have a hatred against humans, but again, none of this is explored. He gets 3 appearances. I'm only talking about him because he gets a focus episode, which is really good, but it means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things, because again, he doesn't do anything. He makes the magic beans, which I guess is useful, but after this, he just disappears, which is really disappointing because, like a lot of OUAT characters, he had potential. Then we have Neil Cassidy, of course Rumpel's son and Henry's father, the guy who the big twist is about. But he's a good character in his own right. Well, I don't like Emma and Neil as a couple. I do like his dynamic, and I especially like his dynamic with Rumpel. And I like his bond with Henry. I like his character in general, although Tamara isn't a good character, you see why Neil falls for her. There isn't much to say other than I like the backstory they give him. And I probably talk about him more in the season 3 video. We have August, who is the worst used character this season. And I do mean that. So he gets his own focus episode, which is crap. For the season we were wondering what happened to August. Did he really turn fully into wood? Is he dead? But we see him in episode 18, where this entire episode, all it does is show Tomorrow to be evil. Where he's entirely wood, but he's still alive, he's still moving, which Vickers allowed him to keep moving. But he's still like this. And he can only do selfless, which is kind of cruel. It's kind of cruel how the Blue Fairy does this. And it just says, and if it was brave, truthful, and unselfish, apparently his reward is getting turned back into a 7-year-old. Apparently this is called a second chance, even though a real second chance was allowing August to be August again, not to turn back into a kid. And yeah, Emma calls this weird because it is weird. And again, the only point to this is for us to find out that Tamara is evil. Now, let's talk about Greg and Tamara. Let's talk about them. They are awful villains. Now, Greg isn't that bad. He has a motive. It's just the performance and the fact that he was barely a presence until the last 6 episodes. Again, it completely backtracks and put this poorly developed plot about destroying magic, which they might have been good villains. And Tamara, that was a joke, but she doesn't have a motive. It is never shown why, any indication, just any magic. Did magic kill her grandma? We don't know. We don't know because it's never revealed why she's here. Why is she destroying magic? It makes sense for Greg. And their romance is very forced and just done for the sake of shock value. She's cheating on him. It doesn't have any purpose in the story. It's just random. And it's just there to misdirect us. Is Greg speaking to his wife? No! He's speaking to Tamara. A character who we're gonna meet soon. It just means nothing. And they are, and believe it or not, they are not the worst villains in this show. Not at all. There are worse ones than just these. Tamara might be the most underdeveloped villain, but boy is there worse villains in here. So that was my review of Once Upon a Time Season 2. In conclusion, it is a good season. It's a mess, but doesn't take away from the main strife of the plot. It still has great character moments, a great villain, for the most part, an interesting story to follow, and a natural follow-up to Season 1. And now we got on to Season 3, which, spoilers, is my favourite season of the show. It will likely be out next week, but it will be structured a little differently than these last 2 videos. And if you've seen the season, you might be able to guess why. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you did, or if you disliked it, dislike it and leave a hate comment. I guess if you want, but you wouldn't have lasted this long anyway if you did. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.